So, you know, industrial products, we make a lot of parts that help other things of like, lawn care, motor, that kind of stuff. So, one day we could be running all aluminum, steel. We do a lot of exotic space exploration's another one. We have parts that we machine that are flying over your head for satellites and rockets. So, and aerospace is another one we dabble in. So what we're really good at is complex parts. The easy, like making donuts, isn't really for us. Can we make you one? Yeah, but you're probably not going to want to know what we charge for it. But we have a lot of 5-axis equipment. And one of the greatest asset here, I'll tell anybody, is our team. People. That's my greatest asset. I can buy bricks and mortar, I can buy equipment. That's easy. Now you got to have people to run it and keep up with it. So I kind of went off on a tangent there. Sorry about that.
That's good. I mean, the more you share, the better. Any exotic materials you use to make the parts?
Oh
Like
yeah,
like
it's
titanium, for example.
yeah, we do. In the firearm industry, we dabble in that a little bit. It's a lot of titanium. Of course, a little bit of that in aerospace, but more of the aerospace stuff we do now is more of an Inconel Monel, and it's like another material called 15.5, which this might be Greek to a lot of people. 15.5 is nice because when it heats up, it doesn't really expand or it stays pretty stable. 17.4 is another one, but Inconel Monel are the two tough ones. Inconel is like really really tough and really really hard to machine, and most people don't. Um, Want to machine it, but you got to think of it like a turtle. You can't be the jackrabbit. It can't push parts out the door. It just takes it's a slow, long and slow. And what's nice about it is once you find the correct tooling, you can automate it because it just takes longer to machine. So that thing's running while you can run about 3 or 4 different other machines, and then you can throw a robot on it to change it. If the part's big enough or small, yeah, it runs high enough. But that's what we like about it. It takes a lot of special tooling, of course, and it's not cheap. So
I always wondered, CNC machining creates so much, I guess, whenever you machine a part, you have so much leftover metal. And if the metal is very expensive, I mean, you don't just throw it out, I'm assuming, right? You basically reuse the metal, or what do you do with it?
it's a bit we recycle everything, it's got to be environmental friendly. So yeah, we separate it. We have it's weird because our coolant system, so coolant is what keeps the tool cool and lubricates it. It's kind of like a car with coolant in it. It just keeps the engine cool, but it also is cutting. So we have when our chips go into a bin, it, they have, like, we call them diapers. So it drains all the coolant out, and then we put it in another bin, it drains more coolant out. So we don't none of that gets into the environment. And yeah, so steel, we'll have steel containers, we'll have aluminum containers, stainless steel containers, and exotics. Copper is a big one right now. Um, everybody's we do machine some copper. Back in the day when we machined Monel, it was different grades, but we were getting like $7 a pound for scrap. That has since gone away, and the reason there's a lot of nickel in Monel. That's why it becomes very very expensive. It still is today, but no, we do separate it, and then we of course we get on the backside of it, we get a little bit of money off that.
Hello and welcome everybody back to the podcast. Today we have special guest Matt Guse. Thanks for jumping on. Where are you calling from today?
Well, I'm calling from beautiful Wisconsin, land of beer and cheese.
That's that's an amazing land. um, Manufacturing is such a foundational industry. What first drew you into this machining?
Well, I got an early start. My dad was a machinist growing up as a kid. We kind of had a farm. And he couldn't. We had like a hobby farm. It wasn't a hobby, but we raised beef, and he was a machinist in the second shift. And so I would always go visit him at work once in a while and see what he was doing, and I always thought it was cool. And and ended up happening is when he worked at a place here in town, I started sweeping the floors, and I was a junior in high school, just because we moved off the farm back into town, and so I started seeing stuff get made and thought it was really cool, and I always liked art and school and making things. So that really drew my interest, working with my hands. And then, of course, one night I got asked to run a CNC machining center. I don't know how much your listeners know what that is, but it's a machine that makes parts and basically carves out material. And I really enjoyed that. And so the owner of the company decided to invest in me and pay for my school. Well, unfortunately, he got killed in a car accident. So it was kind of a, but that's how MRS started. So, we can get into that story, but basically, in school when I was growing up, art was always my thing, and I always took tech ed things. And so I'm kind of a craftsman, and I learn as I go. So that's how I got into it.
That's a pretty interesting story, and sorry to hear about the person that make it in a car accident. But I'm glad where you are today.
Yeah.
Can you share your role at Mr. Um, Machining.co and how it fits into the bigger picture?
Yeah, so I'm the president of MRS Machining. It's funny, MRS stands for we're a woman-owned company, and that's where the Mrs. came in. And that really started when my dad was starting the business. We're into government contract work, and we thought that was the way. And so we thought women-owned would get us the top of the list, which it did when we were starting out. But and we just kind of kept the woman-owned thing. So my wife is actually 51% owner here, and so I get a boss at work and I get a boss at home. But she's not here to day-to-day operations no more. She's more like on a board of directors role. So basically, I'm just here, I'm here to, help people. I, through some of my struggles and stuff, I learned I learned from my mistakes. I let the people run the floor, and I'm just, when they come to me with a problem, they know they better have the solution, but they just want the extra guarantee. And I just kind of stay out of the way because they're much smarter and brighter than me. I always hire people smarter than me. I always Aptitude is what I hire for. I don't hire just because they got a fancy degree. I can see that they got drive. They want to do better, and they want to be part of a team. And that's what we got a bunch of full people here full of. And the funny thing about the MRS thing is 25% of the people that work here are women. And that's what's unique. You don't see that in a lot of manufacturing companies. And the reason we're successful at it is, of course, women drive women a little bit more, and women can multitask. Us guys can't. I can maybe walk and chew gum, and that's about it. Boy, they can do 20 different things, and women like hair and they like to look nice, right? So naturally that goes into the parts they make, and they become really good making good things. So that's kind of my role. Like I said, I got a great team around me, and it's exciting to come see them every day.
Yeah, plus you're anchoring the manufacturing in US, which is fantastic because, most of the stuff which is manufactured is outside of US. And you providing, locally manufactured parts, it's a great fit, great thing. What types of parts or industries do you primarily serve?
Well, we serve a variety of them. I guess the two things that we don't really dabble in is automotive and nuclear right now. Nuclear's become a kind of a hot subject with all the energy and the grid stations and
Yes.
trying to develop that. So we've had opportunities, but basically everything else we're into. Our five top. We don't have any customer over 15% of our business, and we don't really have any industry 15% of our over our business. So we're like a kind of like a grocery store. People don't come to us for hundreds of thousands of loaves of bread. They come to us for one or two loaves of bread. And right now, some of the hot ones over the last few years for us is medical, because all us baby boomers or Gen X's are getting old and they need surgeries, and we need to, they were probably aggressive in school, so, or their younger days, so they have back surgery, leg surgery. So we make a lot of medical instrument tools for that. Um, Fluid power, everything's been trying to be automated. So, a lot of the motors on robots, a lot of cylinders, stuff like that. We're making a lot of that. And then power generation seems to be picking back up again. We were real heavy into oil and gas years ago, but after 2015, that kind of fell flat in its face. But we still dabble in that a little bit. So, you know, industrial products, we make a lot of parts that help other things, like, lawn care, motor, that kind of stuff. So, it's one day we could be running all aluminum, steel. We do a lot of exotic space exploration's another one. We have parts that we machine that are flying over your head for satellites and rockets. So, and aerospace is another one we dabble in. So what we're really good at is complex parts. The easy, like making donuts, isn't really for us. Can we make you one? Yeah, but you're probably not going to want to know what we charge for it. But we have a lot of 5-axis equipment. And it and one of the greatest asset here, I'll tell anybody, is our team. People. That's my greatest asset. I can buy bricks and mortar, I can buy equipment. That's easy. Now you got to have people to run it and keep up with it. So I kind of went off on a tangent there. Sorry about that.
That's good. I mean, the more you share, the better. Any exotic materials you use to make the parts?
Oh
Like
yeah, it's
titanium, for example.
yeah, we do. In the firearm industry, we dabble in that a little bit. A lot of titanium. Of course, a little bit of that in aerospace, but more of the aerospace stuff we do now is more of an Inconel Monel, and it's like another material called 15.5, which this might be Greek to a lot of people, but 15.5 is nice because when it heats up, it doesn't really expand or it stays pretty stable. 17.4 is another one, but Inconel Monel are the two tough ones. Inconel is like really really tough and really really hard to machine, and most people don't. Um, Want to machine it, but you got to think of it like a turtle. You can't be the jackrabbit. It can't push parts out the door. It just takes it's a slow, long and slow. And what's nice about it is once you find the correct tooling, you can automate it because it just takes longer to machine. So that thing's running while you can run about 3 or 4 different other machines, and then you can throw a robot on it to change it. If the part's big enough or small, yeah, it runs high enough. But that's what we like about it. It takes a lot of special tooling, of course, and it's not cheap. So
I always wondered, CNC machining creates so much, I guess, whenever you machine a part, you have so much leftover metal. And if the metal is very expensive, I mean, how do you don't just throw it out, I'm assuming, right? You basically reuse the metal, or what do you do with it?
it's a bit we recycle everything, it's got to be environmental friendly. So yeah, we separate it. We have it's weird because our coolant system, so coolant is what keeps the tool cool and lubricates it. It's kind of like a car with coolant in it. It just keeps the engine cool, but it also is cutting. So we have when our chips go into a bin, it they have like we call them diapers. So it drains all the coolant out, and then we put it in another bin. It drains more coolant out. So we don't none of that gets into the environment. And yeah, so steel we'll have steel containers, we'll have aluminum containers, stainless steel containers, and exotics. Copper is a big one right now. Um, everybody's we do machine some copper. Back in the day when we machined Monel, it was different grades, but we were getting like $7 a pound for scrap. That has since gone away, and the reason there's a lot of nickel in Monel. That's why it becomes very very expensive. It still is today, but no, we do separate it, and then we of course we get on the backside of it, we get a little bit of money off that.
That was just my personal kind of question. I
Yeah,
always wondered. um, what differentiates your shop from other machining companies?
everybody's good at certain things, and there's you're not in business if you're not being successful, and that's one thing I'm addicted to is seeing people be successful. That drives me more. If I can help anybody be successful and guide them, that's me. That's great. I think what really separates us is our young. We're average 29, 30. That's a very young workforce with about 10 years experience. How do you get that? Well, we hire a lot of interns here in school, and we hire them in the summer, and then we try to tell them, hey, go into manufacturing, we'll guide you a path. We'll get you there for career success. And most of them stay here. And with young minds, like me, they don't fear anything. They'll look at something and like, I'll get it done. And they just don't have no fear. Where me, I'm a little older now. I kind of sit back and think things through a little bit more. And then, we're into 5-axis, we're into exotic parts, complexity. We have a great quality QC lab. We're invested heavily in our QC. A lot of our customers come into our shop and they say, wow, I wish 80% of our suppliers look like you and did your QC stuff. And, service, we're about QVS. I call it, we're quality, value, and service. So we don't have answering machines here. I don't allow answering machines because when someone's calling, they're looking for an answer. They're not looking to talk to a voicemail, hang up and say, geez, I hope the person calls me back, or send an email and say, I hope the person emails me back. That's not who we are. So you get a voice. It's not always the answer you want to hear, but at least it's a voice when you hang up and go, at least I talked to somebody and I didn't talk to a voice machine. So I think that's what separates us apart.
That's awesome. What does a typical day look like for you right now?
Well, for me, it's changed a lot, over the last, this would be our 40th year in business. We started in 86. Of course, when I started out, I was out making chips, running machines, and, making things happen. My life was a little bit more stressful. But today, my typical job is, the easiest, and one question I get asked a lot, how come you're so successful, Matt? Well, it's not what I've done, it's what my people do. And the first thing I do is I grab the coffee pot or I'll grab a snack or something and I walk the floor. Good, bad, or ugly. I find the problem. If it's a cancer, I kill it right away. Because, it's communication's huge. And if someone's suffering or if I can help that person, that's what I look for. And, I want the person to feel like they're comfortable. And I tell people here when they're here, there's three things. I want you here, you want to be here, and let's make it so we never work another day in our life again. So if someone, like, for example, if someone has a flat tire in a car or someone needs their yard shoveled or grass mowed or something that's offsetting them, or a toothache, for example, a perfect example. I was walking around for the last couple of days, he had a toothache. And I'm like, well, why don't you go get it fixed? He goes, well, I can't get in the dentist for 3 weeks. And I'm like, I'm really good friends with my dentist. Let me give him a call. So I called him, and the next morning he's in there, and of course he got his tooth fixed. The next thing I know, him and his wife were in my office crying because, he was in pain. And, that pain was going to cost me regardless, because if he's sore, he might miss a day of work, or, he's not going to be as productive. Just clean the problem up. But if I didn't walk the floor, that would have never happened. So that's the key. We run pretty much 24/7 here, so I got to make sure I make an attempt to talk to everybody. Not every day in the third shift so much, but mostly in the first or second, I make sure I make contact. But I do pop in and talk to people, and they have my number. If they have my door's always open. If they have a problem, we talk about it. We don't play games here or anything. If you're up something you've heard, usually it's a communication breakdown. It's like when I was in school, we started high in one end of the building. By the time we got to the other end of the classroom, it was bye. So that's the number one thing: communication, and show people you care, and walk the floor and get to know people. And I try to know people by first name basis. Or as we're growing, it's harder and harder because when we have like 4 Dylans here, it's hard to remember which Dylan is who. But I try my best. So that's what my typical day is. I just meet with all the key people. We have I just they got a job to do, and I just, hey, can I help you? And I just stay out of the way. I don't like. I'm When I was working on the floor working, I didn't like someone looking over my shoulder. I don't want nobody to feel like that, because if you have that, then you feel like you're working on eggshells, and that's never good. And I want people to be here working, making sure they're having fun, and feel like they're not being watched. That's never fun. So that's my typical day. Then I try to work on the business and not in the business. Setting up strategic plans and start seeing, the future. We have a 3 to 5 years. We have a 3-year plan and we have a 5-year plan, and making sure we're meeting those goals every month. And if not, then we have to adjust a little bit. So that's my typical day. It's fun. When you have a bunch of young people with a desire to learn and get better and want to do good. I mean, what else can a person ask for?
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing. What major shifts are you seeing in the machining and manufacturing industry right now?
Um, well, the big buzzword is AI. Years ago it was robots were taking everybody's jobs away. Well, that never happened. Now AI is going to take everybody's jobs away. But I had to tell you, AI ain't going to take machinists, plumbers, and electricians or jobs away. What they're going to take away is the white collar jobs. Everybody wanted to be a coder. I think Mike Earl talks about this a lot. Coding, go to college and get a 4-year degree and become a coder. And well, those jobs are going bye-bye. And it's a big shift. Manufacturing is starting to come back to the U.S. There's still pockets where people try to get things overseas, but that's the big shift. You have to automate to be competitive now. And that's a whole different learning tool. And like right now, kids in elementary school, we're teaching them, trying to train them for jobs that aren't available right now. 20 years ago, if someone would have told me that we're going to have robots in here and people are going to have to learn how to program and move them and set them up, I would have thought you were crazy. But, now we're programming robots, setting them up, and everything's getting pretty much automated. AI does help with that. Don't get me wrong. AI helps with that, but it makes everybody's jobs easier. And so that's the big thing I see. And
Yeah, it's wild. Kids go to school for 4 or 5 years to get in debt, and then they graduate, and your job is gone due to yeah. It's
you know,
just
what my number one of my goal is to prevent a kid from making that kind of financial mistake. We need 4-year colleges. I'm a big advocate of it, but if I can prevent a kid from going to college and spending $50,000 to $100,000 and have that cloud over their head, that that that's that's what drives me. I'll be honest with you, some of my best people here are people that have come off the street or come from broken homes that would never have that career path and just need a second chance in life. We bring them in here, we motivate them, we teach them because, you're speaking of technology, it's changing so fast. You can go to school for 4 years, and by the time you get to the fourth year, what you learned is already outdated. So,
Yep.
um,
Yep.
we find it
I've been
better.
there.
Yeah, you know exactly. We find it better. That if we take a person and send them to school, like, for a week, and then they come back and apply that what they learned in three months, and then they can use it instantly. Well, if I learned something in my first year of college, by the fourth year, I forgot what I learned. So, uh, and so that's what we do. We try to just do quick blasts of training, and then it makes the person feel good. Hey, I learned this, and I tried it, and it worked. So then it sinks in their head. That's where I think college is going. That's where I think education is going. I could speak in this a very long time. I think what's going to happen is you're going to have industry invest in high schools and colleges. And, like for machining tools, a very capital equipment. It's very expensive. So why should I buy, of course we're using it to make our livelihood. Why should a high school try to invest in a, $50,000, $60,000 piece of CNC equipment to train? Why should the tech college do it? Well, now we got three pieces of equipment we're trying to train. Um, so why don't we just use that equipment for training and a little bit of production, and I think everybody would win. The school save money, the tech school save money, and we make money because we're making production and we're getting a staff off it. I think that's the way. Really think that's where technology should go, or training should go. I'm trying to push for it, but it's hard. It's always hard to teach old dogs new tricks. So
It's all logical, but unless it makes money, it's going to be hard to push.
yeah.
I guess
Well,
that's the biggest problem.
well, here's the thing. I'll give you a statistic. You say about how is it going to make money? Well, so we go to all these career fairs. I've been going, and I went to one a couple of years ago, and then this guy come up to me and said, "Well, nobody wants to talk to an old man, Matt." So I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. They want to talk to young people. Kids interact with younger people more their generation. So now I send a young crowd there, and they're really positive and motivated, and they can drive students here. So if I get one student from a career fair, um, you know, we get we chart a lot of things here. So for every employee I have here full time, I generates me about $300,000 of revenue off that person. And if you're making a profit of about 10%, I'll let you do the math. For a half an hour day of work and driving someone here, that's a pretty profitable day for us. So that's how we look at it. I don't. You know, that's just how things work in life. And so um, that's why the expense isn't really there. And if I get them here, like I said, I'm making money out of them, and they're learning, and everybody's a win-win situation. Now I know it's not capable in everything, but I kind of use MRS as like a D1 scholarship. We go out and look for talented people, and just like a good coach goes out and looks for talented people, and we try to inspire them to bring them here. And that's kind of what excites me. And I still do go to schools. I'm still, every school in your district should know your company by first name basis. They should have been in your building. You better invite them into your building. Tell them how important you are. And so when they think of a student in their school, or they think of somebody, hey, go to MRS. So it's all about communication. And if you go down to the local gas station, your local restaurant, and you mention MRS machining, they better know who you are, because if you don't, well, then, how do you generate that buzzword? Hey, that's what you got to do in your community. Generate that buzzword. Make it a fun place to work. Make it a good experience. Um, that's what we do here. So, of course, there's always negative. There's two some. That's like a battery. You got to have a negative and a positive, but you try to have more positive than you do negative. So I know one of our customers, potential new customer, came to us. Was coming to visit, and he said, "I'll get there about 10 o'clock." Okay, what's typical? You know what he did? He went down to the local restaurant, had breakfast, and he started asking questions about MRS. What's MRS about? Are they good people? What are they, And they were my salesmen, because if they would start saying, "Oh, that's a bad place to work. They don't do good quality work. They're just a bunch," you think he probably wouldn't even show it up. But he said they all said positive things. So that's the kind of people we want to invest in, and that's the kind of company we want to work with. And I thought that was a great, great, great. That's how come he's successful, because he does his homework. And now, they're probably $1 million customer a year with us. So just be careful. But that's what I tell my customers with their products. Everybody's talking about skilled help, skilled help. Well, It's not, it's out there. You just have to go out and look for it. And that's what I tell them. Hey, if I go down to the gas station here right now, when I leave, what are they going to say about you? Are they going to know you? And they all look at me like a deer in the headlights. So, um, we just do things different here. We don't really have a box. Everybody thinks outside the box, inside the box. We just created our own new box. So, and it seems to be working well for us. So, not saying that arrogantly, but I'm just saying you have to change with the times.
Okay. Are labor shortages impacting your hiring or production timelines, or is there's no such thing for your kind of industry?
You know, yeah, I mean yeah, it is, skilled help is it's gonna continue to get worse before it gets better. We're making that shift, but yeah, I don't think there's anybody in America that's gonna tell you that skilled help is ready available. Like what's funny is back in the 30s when the depression was on, employees had to come sell themselves to go work, find a job. Well, now that role's reversed. Us companies have to go out and sell ourselves to come work for us. But they're far and few between because when the people are kids just are in this video game mentality where they think video games are going to be um their career path, and sitting at home and in the basements, and you got to get them out. And that's not every kid. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but what I try to do when I get kids in here, I like to show them what a machining is becoming a video game. It's all CAD, 3D CAD. It looks like a video game. You program a machine, you're making stuff, a video game, and it's like these big controls are now big iPads or big telephones where it's all touch screen. So they're actually feeling like that. But schools are trying to keep up as best they can, but um, we're all falling short. But it's going to get tougher and tougher because machining is not really, people don't think of it, think of it more of a dirty, grimy job. The thing that we have here is our building is always it's air conditioned, it's temperature controlled, and it's a place it's a place you can come to every day, and you know what you're going to be expecting. You can go out work outside, that's great too, but when it's 40, 30 below, wind's blowing, it's raining, you got to be in those environments, that's tougher, and it wears on the body. Like excavating, then you're working all summer, then you get the winter off, which, okay, is great, but then people don't realize that they're on unemployment, and they don't make as much. So dollar to dollar, if you start comparing career paths to each other with benefits and overtime, everybody's pretty much in the same boat. Kids these days, all they see is, I want $20 an hour, or $25 an hour. That's all they see. They don't see the benefits, the 401ks. They don't see the vacation pay, bonus checks. They don't see none of that. We don't really do a good job of teaching that in schools. Funny story is I went to a school, I was speaking in front of the whole school, and I started my conversation out, and I says, anybody in this whole auditorium, does anybody know what a 401k is? The room got quiet, and then one kid raises his hand. He goes, that seems like a long marathon. They didn't even know what a 401k was, so we had to give them a little education that day. So, no, yeah, the skill help is going to get tougher and tougher, but we're getting better at it. So I'm excited for that.
Okay. Do customers expect faster turnaround times now than 5, 10 years ago?
Yeah, yeah, that's getting tight. Like back when I started, 6 week delivery was like the norm. Then it went to 4. Now it's like some people want like McDonald's. Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you? Service. You can do it. It's high stress. It's really because there's so many variables in machining. Like you got heat treating, you can't get a heat treated part done overnight. You can't get chrome plated parts. You can't get anodized parts. If I'm wrong, someone please show me. And it's very expensive, and it's like because the stress level goes up, and you talking precision, it's things move around, but 3D printing, that's helped a lot. Prototyping, it's a little more easier to do, but all this capital equipment you got sitting here, you just can't wait for someone to pick up the phone and call and expect the parts is going to be here tomorrow. So, but everything's changing so fast. People want instant success. And that's another subject with kids these days. Excuse me. But those whole customers want instant parts, and that's tough. We do it for some of our customers. We just kind of have a dedicated area for them, and we build it into our schedule. But if somebody was going to call up and say, "Hey, I want to fix my lawnmower, can you machine this part?" and all that, we don't do that here. The company's not like a space exploration. That's really, really common. Hey, here's a model, here's a part, and can you make this? But then we ask for a dimensional print, and they're looking at me like, "Well, just make it to the model." Well, you start holding a tenth. So I'm talking a tenth. I'm thinking like, take your hair, cut it 30 times. That's 1/10. We didn't know what those key features are, and then sometimes we get the model, they don't draw the model right, so we start machining it, and then we got a part that's not correct. So, but in the backside, like, hey, you promised me I could have this in 48 hours. So that's the kind of
48
stress
hours. Does that happen actually?
oh, it can happen. There's people that are doing it, and they're doing it really well, and my hat goes off to them. But we've done it here a few times. We're more of a, like I said, we're more like a grocery store. So we have a key customer that takes partnership, a true partnership. We're both into this together, and we're working together, and we're doing great. And yeah, we can do it for them. It's not every day, of course, but yeah, there's people out there doing it. I don't know how they do it, and it just there's so much. The stress level of that is because if you miss the target, well, now you're the bad guy. So and then that starts bad negative talk. Hey, he promised me, and MRS promised me, and then they didn't do it. And so, can you do it? And you know how that gets happening. So it's tough. Manufacturing ain't easy. I always tell people like a machinist, you're 5 different things. You're a machinist, you're an engineer. You got to figure out how to hold the part. You got to figure out how to machine the part. And then there's people what really don't understand is there's stresses. When you make things stress, things move around. So that's all got to be factored in. Chemistry, a coolant, you got to make sure you have a good lubricant, when you're tapping a hole or thread milling a hole. If you don't have the correct lubricant, things can really go bad and you can scrap a part out. And of course, you're sitting on a $500,000 5-axis machine and you bump it and take out the spindle, there's 50, 60 grand. Or electrician, maybe he screwdriver breaks or his van full of tools has a flat tire. But granted, you could turn the power on and you could bolt yourself too, but I think that's a little more controllable than you you take a piece of metal from one mill and it machines beautiful, and now you're trying to get a part done fast and it came from a different mill with a different cake recipe, and now it stresses and bows and bananas, and you can't schedule that. So
How
it's
often do you get like a part which is not properly heat treated and it basically comes out wonky when you start machining it?
doesn't happen too often. We rely a lot on our steel suppliers, and we've had a few times where they um sent us saying it's this and it's that. Nowadays, you can go out buy a $30,000 gun and it's really kind of like an X-ray. You can X-ray the material and it'll spit out what it is, close. But we don't have one of them here. We have access to one if it really comes critical. But it does happen. Don't get me wrong. And of course, then I always tell people that our customers, let's fix it and ask questions later. But it doesn't happen very often. The heat treater gets the part and all of a sudden you can't heat treat it. Well, now you got to start looking at certifications. When you get the material, you get certs. So
Okay. So whenever you get an order, then it has to be a specific composition of metals, basically, like specific recipe. I mean, how quickly you get a turnaround from the smelter to get the specific recipe of a metal into your shop.
So most people, the engineer designed to what's really readily available. Now we have a customer that's got a unique product where it has a certain recipe and they come up with their own cake recipe. I mean, that can take 12 to 20 weeks just to get the material. Um, And then most of our customers, when we order it, we have to give the certs to them and they have to approve it. And once they approve it, then we can start machining. So that takes time. That's where you ain't going to get your 24 to 48 hours. And you got to have a certain amount of tensile strength and yield strength in that material um, before you can machine it. So that has to get customer approval, which can take, you know, depends how fast they move. First, we got to find the material. So our buyer searches some days for days just to find the right batch. And then hopefully when you get the batch that the customer approves it. And so, yeah, so that's where if you're looking, that's where it's almost impossible to get fast service unless you got that material sitting right there on the floor, which we have. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of material, special material sitting on the floor, and most of that is just because we have a lot of bar ends. We'll buy a 12-foot bar and we'll use 8 feet of it, and we have 4 feet there. And we've come up with a really cool system here that everybody wants to buy, but I'm not into the software buying of it. So we barcode all the material with a sticker that's almost indestructible. And we put that barcode on that material and we can scan it. It can tell you the PO number, the type of material, and the size. And then from the PO number, we can go back and we scan in the certs into our system and we can instantly know what the recipe of that material is, all within the click of a button pretty much. So we're very fortunate that way, but that didn't happen overnight. I may be getting really technical for you, but someone
No,
out
it's
there
pretty cool.
listen.
I mean, I've been in IT for about 20 years, so I'm really, really interested in actual manufacturing because maybe I picked the wrong field. I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
always fascinating for me. Do you print it or you burn it with a laser onto the metal?
Most of our material we just saw. Of course, some of the stuff plate structure we get, we have a source that burns it out or lasers it out. That plate stereo material can be different. So a lot of people like using plate because it's a little bit stronger because it's got a crisscross grain structure. Where if you got raw material, it's a spiral grain structure, and a lot of hydraulics or high pressure materials, if you don't have a circular, it could has a possibility to rip apart. It's kind of like taking a piece of stick and ripping it. Or when you got a crisscross grain, it's like sewed together and it's almost impossible to get apart. So a lot of those factors come in, but that's where the engineering comes in for under the certain. But so most of our we have a saw. We have like 4 saws over here across the street. Some of it we can bring inside. Just depends on the availability of it.
I implied was, I mean, you mentioned you have a sticker who you put on the parts, and it tells you exactly everything about the parts. Is it an actual sticker you print and stick on a metal, or it's something you actually burn in with a laser that you
No,
can scan
we
later?
actually print it and put it on the material and leave it on there one end because a lot of times our material suppliers have paper on it and they try to tape it. Well, that usually falls off, and now we have no idea. So, and then we some of it we stamp. We stamp the end too because some of our customers demand that we give it a code number. So we have a sticker. Some of it we have a sticker and a stamp code number on there too. So
All right, let's switch gears here. What's working really well for your business right now?
um, well, I guess there's the people. I mean, the people is the biggest thing for any business. I think just that we can adapt to change. We're financially strong. We're a debt-free company. That took a few years, but that makes us so when a customer needs something or we can react. If we need to buy equipment, we buy it. Um, we need tools, we buy it. We have a great customer base. We have a great supplier base. Our customers are wonderful. Our suppliers are wonderful. We built that reputation up together. Um, we work together, and I always roll up our sleeves. Um, because you can't do everything to everybody. So it'll be everything to everybody. So we all try to work together. And we have with our customers. We like to meet quarterly or semi-annually to see if there's problems. Of course, there's always problems in everything, just like a marriage. Everybody gets married in a tropical paradise, but you got to work through those issues and just be proactive. And make it fun. I'll be honest with you. I fired customers just because the fact that they're not they don't want to work together. There's too much stress, and that's not what we're about. We got a job to do, and we got to do it, and we got to do it correct, and we both got to be successful at it.
Okay. Where are you seeing the most friction operationally? No pun intended.
I think the delivery thing is the hardest part for us. Everybody, like you said, everybody's tightening up deliveries, and everybody wants things quicker. Nobody, because when last year or two, I think we were in a session, and nobody wanted to stock anything or inventory things. The tariff thing, that like, okay, is it going to be this cost today or is it going to be that cost tomorrow? Like our tooling suppliers, they've all raised their prices, which is, they raise their prices about every 6 months. So it's hard to adapt and plan for that. Material prices have been holding pretty good for us. They haven't really went skyrocketing or they haven't really dropped. So that's very volatile. So we have to monitor that. Um, so just a cost factor. I mean, you never know. Like if our customers I always tell them if they're great at designing and have a great product, let us manufacture it. Because if they try doing it in house, they don't know it's not like a fixed cost. You can make something and like I said, it could be scrapped out or could get the wrong material. That's extra cost. When they get it from us, it's $10, it's $10. And it doesn't matter what we lost or what we made. It's just they have a fixed cost. So I try to, because we run so many different parts here, and a lot of the parts are similar, so we can gang up on it and have one setup to make like 10 different parts for maybe sometimes 10 different customers. We have that flexibility. Our typical day for us, we have about 35 or 40 jobs that leave here, and we have about 800 active jobs in our systems.
Okay. Are there bottlenecks in quoting, scheduling, production, or delivery?
Yeah, there's always bottlenecks. Quoting's always the hardest part. People get instant quotes. which is great. I've tested a few of the softwares. We have this part we've been making for 10 years, and we got the thing machined down to a science. And these people that, and I ain't gonna try to knock them, but they come in with this software. Hey, we can get all this quoting AI done for you. And it's okay. Here's a part. Here's a model. Quote it. Well, I think we're like $12, and their quoting system comes in like $2.70. So you got to be really, really careful to rely on that. Now, granted, there's someone out there probably listening might tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. So we do have some little bit of that helping us with the quoting, but then we also have to have a set of human eyes on it because we don't want to make that big mistake. You can hear that's a very good question. I have not found a scheduling system that's 100%. So I have machinist A, who is a super machinist, set up the job. He may set it up in a half an hour. Well, I get machinist B, he's a little newer. It may take him 3 hours. Okay, so they both make parts. Well, now they scrap 2 parts, and we need 4, and we only got 3 good ones. So now we got to reset the machine up and remake it. And that ain't happening all the time, but it does happen. You can't really schedule that. But then again, then you can have a job and you got it scheduled for 6 hours, and it takes 3.5. Well, now you got to move everything up. So, and some of our customers scold us for shipping early. So, which is weird
Wow.
because they
Yeah,
have a
I've came across that kind of things in my area as well.
yeah. So it's so many variables, and we're a job shop. We don't design, and we don't have our own product. We make the customer print. So really, what we do is we sell time, and we have to do our best guess of estimating the time to do that. And it's just, like for example, when the power goes out,
Yeah,
how do
yeah,
you
I can
schedule
predict
that?
that. Yeah, I can predict that.
No, well, that happens from time to time. And
Unless
I,
you have backup power, like backup generators.
yep, yep. But then we'd have to have some humongous generators to keep our machines going. Now for our lights and our computers, yeah, that's easy. We can get a generator. We have a generator for that, but not our machines. That doesn't. It takes a lot of power. I wish we could just flip that switch, and there's probably systems out there that you can, but it's hundreds of thousands of dollars just for I know. And that's another thing I tell my customers. And if you have a product that you rely on heavily and it's a good volume runner, don't sole source it, because we have a thing called natural disasters in America or in this world. So if one customer sales, or like right now, I'll be honest with you, a lot of our business is from shops that are closing. Um, just like I'm done, I'm retired, because baby boomers get older and they're retired and they don't really want to sell their company. They just want to close it down because the building's paid for, all the equipment's paid for, sell it, bring that money, and that's their retirement, which that's another day and another story. But, so our customers our current customers are coming to us and saying, hey, can you make this? And that's how we're actually growing right now because, they see us as like, if I do nothing, my average age is 30. So if I really do nothing, we're still here in 25 years because I have a great team and I don't think they plan on going anywhere. Most of my people that work for me are pretty financially successful. If they listen to us, they don't go to school and have that big cloud debt. So they've got homes, they got cars. They don't have that cloud. So that's what people see in us, our youth.
Do you feel like you have real-time visibility into capacity and margins?
Yeah, we have visibility. Could it be better? Yeah, we can always get better in a lot of areas. Capacity wise, we're running about 70% now. What's really throwing this off now is we just added our second robot or third robot into our schedule now, and that thing runs 24/7. So we we're learning. It really drops, opens up some capacity in certain areas because we can run 20, we first started out just roughing parts out, but now we're getting into finishing them. So it's creating more time and more hours into our system, and then we're using that. So it's hard to, it's getting better and easier to plan around that. Capacity wise, it's hard sometimes because we got a whole slew of complex parts coming through. 80% of our people here can set up and run their own parts, but it's a little harder for our newer machinists to tackle that. But then if we got a bunch of easy work, well then our capacity opens up because everybody can set it up and run it. So it's hard. I mean, scheduling is just that's one I, besides the skilled labor help at trying to get people in here and for the future, that keeps me up at night. The two things.
Okay. And where do you want your company to be in 6 to 12 months from now?
We've been growing 10% a year. We don't try to grow over 15% because then it starts to become chaotic. We put a 5-year plan in, and we're in year 3 of that, and we succeeded that by about 3 to 5% over the last 2 years. We're just going to continue growing. My big thing right now is real estate. Bricks and mortar. That's what we're dabbling on. I need we're pretty crammed and packed in here, but we're efficient at it. I don't like bricks and mortar because it just costs money and you pay taxes on it, and it really doesn't make you a profit buying a $600,000-$700,000 machine. I don't sweat. That's easy because I know I can generate revenue off it. A building where we're located now, if I'm located in a big city, it's a little easier. But if I'm going to put $1 million building up where I live, it ain't worth $1 million. You paid $1 million for it. You're lucky it's worth 300,000 to 400,000. So that's a tough thing to swallow. But no, that's my next move. And then, typically the county I live in isn't really proactive in manufacturing. So that's a struggle too.
Okay. Are you looking to scale production, increase margins, or streamline operations?
Streamline operations, we're trying to do more with less. But we keep buying equipment. I don't get rid of my equipment because, in 5 years, and now we pay cash for it, but I have equipment that's 20, 25 years old that's still making good parts. So that's why we standardize our equipment with one machine, and there's different reasons for that. So everybody can run the same machine, knows the same control. So the machine goes down, we can actually move parts and put it in different parts. But then also replacement parts are interchangeable, so they're all kind of the same standard. Forget where I was going with that, but so
Margins
yeah, margins. So that we
and
don't have
streamline
that.
operations. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't have that big overhead debt cost, big payment, that helps everybody. So we can build that up. So we just don't get rid of our equipment. We just keep it because it's still good. And it's more valuable to us to keep it than to try to sell it for a little less. And then streamline our operations. Yeah, we're always trying to focus on how to move parts. We probably move equipment around here at least 2 or 3 times, well, once a year, but for sure. But it's more of a maze. What's nice about 3D printing now, you can take your floor, you can scan it, scanners, you can scan your whole building, and you can scan your equipment, and it'll build a box, and then you can take a piece of paper and 3D print those little models, and you can lay it out and show flow of your building, which is, even drones can do that. You can fly a drone around your building and scan it, which is really cool. And, it's back in the old day, you have to draw it up in your CAD system and go out with tape measures and measure it and then try to cut out little models. But nowadays it's a lot easier and it's more automated. So that's kind of cool.
It's amazing. So basically, you're scanning the floor area and seeing where you can fit more equipment.
Exactly. But we don't have much floor. We don't have much more square inches. And I always say I want to get one more machine in here, and we don't have room. Well, ended up I said that 3 machines ago. So, but we're tight. We got 29 CNC machines into an area about 15,000 square feet. So, but we're efficient at it. We laid it all out. It's more of a puzzle. The hardest part is if we ever have to take out a machine and bring a new one in, that would be a little bit harder of a challenge. So,
Interesting. Let's see. If growth doubled tomorrow, would your current system handle it?
yes, yeah. So back in 2018, we had a customer come to us, a huge project. It was basically going to be about 80-90%. It would tie up 80-90% of our capacity. We learned our lesson. No, we're not going to do that. So we came to our team and I sat down with everybody, and everybody that need 1 year of probably 7 days a week, 50, 60 hours. Is everybody on board? And here in the backside of it, we're all going to make a bunch of money. And everybody nodded their head yes. So we can make that happen. And we don't want to jeopardize any of our customers. That's a key thing. We have customers that we're not going to jeopardize. We're going to keep them going, but we have this extra opportunity, and we did it. And everybody went home at the end of the year, and everybody made a bunch of money, and it helped us financially strong, and that's where we're at today. So yeah, I say it wouldn't be easy, but we handle it, and we can probably handle it again.
That sounds good. All right. Well, I'm going to send you something over the LinkedIn again, but thank you for joining the podcast. This has been an absolute pleasure. I was talking about actual physical things instead of just IT. So thanks for sharing, and hope you have a great day. All right. Bye-bye.